Packed my bags. Last night, pre-flight. 0 hour. 9 a.m. And I'm gonna be high. As a kite by then. Miss the earth so much. I miss my wife. It's lonely out in space on such a tight flight. And I think it's going to be a long, long time.
Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to another edition of Quick Trivia with Mike. It's the weekly game show right here on Channel 955 where we test your knowledge of facts. Some of them are a little bit older and historical in nature. Some of them are very contemporary. Hopefully they're always a lot of fun. I am your host and the quizmaster, Mike Brever. As always, we have a guest host with us this week, and our guest host is Ellie Spaulding. Hello, Ellie. How are you today?
Hello. I'm good. How are you?
I'm just fine. I'm hoping we're going to have a lot of fun today.
That's great.
Good. Well, let me remind everybody, we usually begin by giving you the answers to 3 questions that I posed last week. You're probably a regular viewer, so you know all this already, right?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Oh, I'm not surprised. Then we give you 3 new questions for the coming week, and we ask people to give us their answers by noon on Monday. Okay?
Okay.
But first, we started a new tradition here at East Castle Place with the birthdays of the week. Typically, we begin our trivia show by highlighting the birthdays this week. And there are none.
Oh, really?
Nobody was born in this week
Wow.
that lives here at East Castle Place.
That's surprising.
I'm surprised. It's actually the first time it's ever happened. Next
Wow.
week, of course, we will have several. 4 at least. But none. So there you have it. Time to move right along. Ellie, tell us a little bit about yourself. What are you doing here at East Castle Place?
So I'm East Castle Place. I'm East Castle Place's student, artist, and resident.
Okay.
So I am an art student myself, and I am joining memory care once a week and helping with activities up there and joining them. And I'm also going to be holding workshops for residents to come and join.
And how did you happen to get this job? What is your field of study that qualified you for artist in residence?
So I'm an art major at UWM.
My alma mater for my undergrad program.
Oh, really?
It is, that's correct. And my daughter went there for hers as well.
Oh, that's
And my
awesome.
son went there for his master's.
That's really great.
It's a good school.
It
I
is.
enjoyed it, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're an art major, a particular field of study in the art field?
Yes, so I'm in painting and drawing is my concentration.
Okay.
And I'm also a psychology major at UWM. So
And does the art and psychology play off of each other? Do they benefit themselves?
I think they do. I've noticed that there's some things that kind of correlate. And also I'm kind of in pursuit of art therapy.
Okay.
So that's something that I would have to get my master's for, but the prereqs are psychology and art. So
Okay.
that's what I'm
Now,
doing.
do you live on campus?
I do not. I live in Wauwatosa.
Okay. You know, previous artists in residence, we actually provided a domicile here.
Yeah.
So that you actually lived with our residents. COVID, unfortunately, has gotten in the way of that.
Right.
But I understand from previous artists and residents, who I got to know a little bit, they really enjoyed having dinner with the residents, socializing, maybe going on a field trip when they were available, things like that.
Yeah.
You're missing out on a lot of that type of social interaction, which made the position a lot more successful, I think.
Yeah.
So what are you going to be doing to compensate for that kind of loss, if you will, of interaction? Any ideas?
Well, I definitely have felt that a little bit of loss in not spending all my days here.
Right.
But I've been joining yoga classes, and I've been joining Tai Chi classes.
Excellent.
And trying to do things to socialize with the residents and get to know them a little better.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
With your field of study now, you've mentioned that you work up in memory care. You're also going to be doing things in independent living with some of the residents. Clearly, those are probably two very different types of things, right?
Yes.
What might you be doing in memory care? And I'm curious if the things you do in memory care are pass the time kind of things, or are they therapeutic, working towards a goal of some sort?
Yeah, so right now I'm getting to know the residents upstairs in the memory center, so we've been
Okay.
doing a lot of word games and get to know you games. And I think that as time progresses, I'll be able to plan some activities that are kind of similar to the independent ones, but altered in some ways. But it has been different working with the different types of residents, but I'm enjoying both.
It's hard not to enjoy the people here, isn't it? I mean,
It
really,
totally.
you and your neighbors are just wonderful, and I know you've been very welcoming to Ellie as well, right?
Yes, that's very true. I feel very welcomed here.
Excellent, excellent. So, how far along are you in your studies now?
So I am technically a sophomore at this point, as I've just taken on a double major.
Okay.
But it's my third year at UWM.
Okay. Well, if it's any consolation to you, most of you viewers know that to get through college, I worked in factories full-time, and I went to school part-time. It took me 7.5 years. So for you to be in the third year of a program and you're 2 years along, you're on a much faster pace than I was, and here I am. So maybe you'll be at East Castle in 30 years, who knows?
Yeah, that's right.
Very good. Do you see a role for somebody like you on an ongoing, regular basis at East Castle?
I do. I think that having an artist here is really great for the residents, just because not only the workshops where they can participate, but I think that having an artist's point of view and just an artist representing other artists is good to have.
Sure. Have you ever worked with an older population before, or is this a first?
This is a first for me.
And are you enjoying it?
I'm totally enjoying it. I have a lot of experience with kids, and I have some experience just with the public. I was a barista for a couple years. So.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I love barista coffees. Those are great.
Yes,
Absolutely.
I worked at Stone Creek for a year. So.
Okay. Wonderful.
Yeah.
So you bring a lot of a varied background to your work here now.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd say so.
And nothing that's happened here has changed your mind about a future career path.
Nope. I'm
Good.
still, yep.
Well, congratulations, all of you. You're helping Ellie along on her path. So, Ellie, why don't we take a little bit look at the show, and we'll come back and talk to you a little bit later in the second half, okay?
Sure, that sounds great.
All right. You all know by now that what we do is pose 3 questions. We also have a tiebreaker. If 2 or more people have the same number of questions correct, what people do is they have to identify the bumper music. My cameraman and producer, Scott McFerrin, changes the music that leads into the show and exits the show every week. And if people can identify that music, that's the tiebreaker.
Okay.
All right? So now these, you can actually pose the answers to if you want to. We talked last week a little bit about the Green Bay Packers. It's the 100th anniversary of the NFL. We took a look specifically at their Hall of Fame quarterback, Brett Favre. You know, he's had a glorious career with the Packers. He ended the career, however, working for a year with the Jets, and I think he was 2 years with the Minnesota Vikings. But, you know, we'll get over that. Wisconsin still loves Brett Favre. Mm-hmm. We also talked a great deal about the many wonderful receivers that he was blessed to work with in his career. And we talked about the fact that Green Bay is noted for their receivers, going all the way back to Don Hudson, who played in the 30s and the 40s. But Donald Driver, James Lofton, Sterling Sharp, Jordy Nelson, all of those are wonderful, very talented individuals that Brett Favre played with as a Green Bay Packer. Mm-hmm. We also talked about the fact that Brett Favre started his career. He played 1 year for the Atlanta Falcons. Never got on the field. He was a backup for the Falcons. And then the Packers traded for him. I asked our viewers, and I'll ask you, who did Brett Favre complete his very first pass as a Green Bay Packer 2. Who did he hook up with for his very first pass as a Green Bay Packer?
Oh gosh, that had to be a while ago.
It was, I'll give you a clue, it was 1992.
Okay, I wasn't even a twinkle in 1992.
Okay.
But I think, oh boy, I don't know any of the Packers from the 90s.
Okay. It was Brett Favre himself.
Oh,
His
gosh.
very first pass was deflected at the line of scrimmage. And he caught the deflection. And he actually lost yardage on it. But he becomes a true historical quirk in that a Hall of Fame quarterback actually caught his very first pass as a Green Bay Packer.
That's crazy.
That was the answer to question number 1. Question number 2. We talked a little bit about old-time television. You know, television really burst on the scene in the 40s and the 50s. A lot of the old-time shows continued for many, many years. The old soap operas, Days of Our Lives, General Hospital, things like that. There also was some evening programming, probably a name you don't know. But actually he's on TV yet today, Lawrence Welk. Have you ever heard of him?
I've heard the name.
Okay. Lawrence Welk was on television for about 30 years. At the end of that, PBS bought all the shows. Actually, the PBS affiliate in Oklahoma. And it's broadcast nationwide on PBS affiliates. Now, you all know that I worked at PBS before I came to East Castle Place. And Lawrence Welk was one of our Saturday night shows. It was not always called the Lawrence Welk Show. When it started, it was called Lawrence Welk's Dodge Dancing Party. Specifically because his sponsor was Dodge Automobiles. So it was Lawrence Welk's Dodge Dancing Party. It debuted in the debuted in the summer of 1955, and it was on until the mid-80s. And then PBS picked it up after that. There was another very famous evening program that started out with a different name as well. Lawrence Welk, Dodge Dance Party. There was a show that started as a local affiliate of the NBC station in New York, WNBT-TV, which is now WNBC. It premiered in 1953. I'll tell you, it still airs today. It began as a 40-minute local program. It was called the Knickerbocker Beer Show because the sponsor, like Lawrence Welk's Dodge Dance Party, Knickerbocker Beer was the sponsor. The Knickerbocker Beer Show. What was the name, or what is the name today of the show that debuted in 1953 as the Knickerbocker Beer Show?
Oh boy. And
Still on today.
Still on today.
It
like,
is.
Still airing reruns or still actually?
No.
Oh boy.
Yeah, no. In fact, it's a very popular show.
Is it a soap opera?
Nope.
Can you give me a hint?
No, it's not.
You stumped me.
Evening television, late night.
Oh,
Have you ever heard of a man named Johnny Carson?
yes, I
The
have.
Tonight Show.
Okay.
The
so-
Knickerbocker Beer Show morphed into the Tonight Show. But first, it went from the Knickerbocker Beer Show to the Steve Allen became the original host of it. Then it was Jack Parr. Then it was Johnny Carson for 30-some years.
Wow. So
Johnny Carson actually hosts the record for the longest tenure as a host of a television show. And then many entertainers since then.
Yeah.
The guy with the big chin, Jay Leno.
Yeah.
Jay Leno did after Johnny, and then, you know, all kinds of things. But there actually was a time when The Tonight Show was so successful, it was the profit center for NBC. The Tonight Show made money. Everything else on NBC lost money. That was the answer to question number 2. Question number 3. I talked a little bit about the history of Milwaukee. Then I talked a little bit about some of the founding fathers of Milwaukee, some of the really influential people in Milwaukee history. I talked about Valentine Blatz, Blatz Brewery. Probably don't know that, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that name.
Blatz Brewery was one of the big brewers, along with Pabst, Schlitz, Miller, Lyndon Harry Bradley, Oliver Smith started A.O. Smith, Edward P. Ellis, Ellis Chalmers, Guido Pfister, His son actually built the Fisher Hotel. Guido was in the tanning industry.
Oh, interesting.
I asked, Walter, Arthur, and William Davidson. All of these people were famous people in Milwaukee's history, in life. In death, they share something in common as well. What is it that they share in death? That was question number 3.
Is it something to do with their age?
Nope. Nope.
Oh, cause of death?
Nope.
Oh boy. I don't know any of these answers.
Where they're buried. They are all buried at Forest Home Cemetery on Milwaukee's south side, where most of Milwaukee's notable founding fathers and mothers are buried. I was chastised last week, and justifiably so. I mentioned many men from the history of Milwaukee, but Matilda Annika, Meta Berger, Lydia Ely, Alice Chester, Laura Walcott, Georgia Stebbins, Dickie Chappelle. We actually did a special on her when I was at PBS, wartime correspondent, photojournalist. Melody Oldenburg, they're all buried at Forest Home Cemetery as well. That was the answer to question number 3. Very interesting, a little tidbit about cemeteries. You can follow the original boundaries of Milwaukee by where cemeteries are. Cemeteries were always placed just outside the town limits. And so that you can follow cemeteries to know the approximate original size of Milwaukee. Another interesting thing about cemeteries, if you look at Milwaukee, Forest Home Cemetery, it's on Forest Home Avenue, and angled street. You know, Milwaukee is set up in a grid pattern, but there are angle streets throughout. Wind Lake Avenue, Muskego Avenue, Forest Home. Those angle streets actually are old Indian trails. And they were the major ways in and out of Milwaukee when it was horses and wagons and things. They would follow old Indian trails. And that's why the main routes in and out of Milwaukee tend to be, years ago, on angle streets.
That's really interesting. I did not know that.
So there you go.
Yeah.
That, my friends, was the answer to question number 3. Once again, as a tiebreaker, Scott McFerrin always picks out a lot of really good music for me. Last week, the tiebreaker, the music was Someday We'll Be Together. Does that name ring a bell for you? Have you ever heard of a female artist by the name of Diana Ross?
Yes.
Started out with the Supremes, broke off on her own. Someday We'll Be Together was the bumper music last week. Ironically, we have 2 people who got all 3 questions correct. They both got the bumper music correct as well.
So what are you going to do?
We have a tie. We have 2 people who will each get their picture on Channel 955 all week long. It is Alex Hill and Sandra Meyer. Welcome back to the winner circle. You are our champions for Quick Trivia with Mike this week. All right. There you have it, everybody. Ellie and I are going to take a brief intermission, and we will be right back. You need to go get yourself a little bit of brain food, a coffee, maybe a donut, because we've got some real brain teasers for you when we come back. Hurry back, we'll be waiting right here.
Put your hands up.
No.
What?
I said no.
Why not?
I don't want to.
But I've got a gun.
I don't care.
Doesn't make any sense.
Too bad.
Well, Where are your friends?
I don't know.
Yes, you do know.
No, I don't know.
You do know.
Shoot me then.
Hey, welcome back to the second half, everybody. You know, we already know the winners for this past week, Sandra Meyer and Alex Hill. You'll be on Channel 955 all week with your photos celebrating the fact that you are the trivia champs for the week. But we're meeting today my special guest host, Ellie Spaulding. We are talking a little bit about what you're doing here at East Castle Place, your background. Let's learn a little bit more about you. Where are you from, Ellie?
So I'm from QTWM. It's a little town about 45 minutes to an hour north of Milwaukee.
Okay.
It's a pretty small town, and yeah, I grew up there my whole life, went to high school, and then I'm in Milwaukee now.
Very good. Do you think this will be your long-term residence then?
I think for a while, definitely.
Okay.
I love Milwaukee.
When you go for your, I think you said you're going for a master's ultimately, right? Do you think that'll be at UWM as well?
It's a possibility. Also, perhaps Mount Mary has an art therapy program.
Okay.
Otherwise, out of state maybe.
Okay.
You never know.
All right. Do you have siblings in Kewaskum?
I do. They actually both live in Milwaukee, but I have
Oh.
2 older sisters.
Okay. So you're the youngest.
Yes, I am the young.
I was
Baby.
too.
Really?
And I'll tell you, the beauty of being the youngest sibling, no matter how old you get, there are people older than you in your family.
That's
You know,
very true.
and when you get to my age, that's pretty important. You know, you're not the oldest. There's always someone who makes you feel pretty young because they're older than you. So what do your siblings do?
So my oldest sister, Erica, she's serving right now. She has she's looking for a job. She's a neuropsych major.
Okay.
So she's been kind of searching, and the COVID deal made it a little difficult. But
Okay.
we worked at the Milwaukee Yacht Club for many years, and now she's serving at Bartolotta's.
Very good. Excellent. And your other sister?
My other sister has a marketing position internship that she's working on, and also she serves also at Bartolotta's. So they are
Okay.
together working.
So you're all involved in people-oriented industries of one sort or another.
Yeah.
Your family must be very outgoing and gregarious.
Yeah, you could say that.
Well, wonderful, wonderful. Well, should we take a look at this week's questions?
I think so.
All right. You know, it's October, the Halloween season. This week's questions, we're going to be really looking a lot at entertainment and entertainment history, okay? So we're going to begin by taking a look at the namesake of the season, Halloween movies. Halloween, the 1978 classic. I know there's been a remake in 2018. You know, the Halloween series with Michael Myers and,
Yeah.
Homicidal Maniac, all the rest of that. It really started, maybe not started, but it really brought to fruition the slasher genre among horror, Halloween-type movies. I think Halloween itself had about 7 or 8, maybe 9 movies. Then they started just remaking them. But originally, the original was 1978. It was a classic. It really was the beginning of the career of Jamie Lee Curtis. Jamie Lee Curtis has gone on to fame in her own right with her career. Her mother, of course, is the famous Janet Leigh, who was the victim in Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock's famous movie, kind of a tie-in there between drama movies. And Tony Curtis was her father. So Janet Leigh and Tony Curtis, her name is Jamie Lee Curtis. That's where it comes from. Also really started the career of Donald Pleasence. You know, he was in the movie The Great Escape, but he did a host of other things after that. But Halloween, he was the psychiatrist who was tracking Michael Myers, really made his career take off. Again, it started in 1978, and it took on a life of its own because they kept the nature of Michael Myers very mysterious. He wore a mask. Actually, John Carpenter, who was the director, interesting story. The mask that Michael Myers wears in that, he decided he didn't want to ever show the face of the killer, much like Alfred Hitchcock did in Psycho originally. So he bought a mask, The Mask is actually the head of James T. Kirk from Star Trek.
Oh, really?
It is. It is. He bought it in a 5 and dime store. He walked in, he said, that'll do. And,
Wow.
and that's what it is. So there's all kinds of interesting things about it. And as we said, it really brought the slasher type film to fruition. However, I want to go off on a little bit of a tangent. It started the genre, which really saw fruition in many movies. But at least 5 of the movies have a lead character that are all based on somebody. Norman Bates in Psycho, Ezra Cobb in Deranged, Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacres, Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs, and Otis B. Driftwood in House of a Thousand Corpses. All of those protagonists, antagonists, all of those villains,
Yeah.
all of those villains are really loosely connected to one real life person. Who is that real life person? And I will tell you a hint. There's a Wisconsin connection.
Oh boy.
Question number 1. Question number 2, we're going to go off on another tangent. This time a little bit more fun. The James Bond movies. James Bond, of course, is based on the series of books by Ian Fleming. After Ian Fleming died, there was a successor series of books that have been commissioned by the Fleming estate. So there are more James Bond books than Ian Fleming actually wrote. Pierce Brosnan, Sean Connery, Daniel Craig, Timothy Dalton, they all starred as James Bond in a series of films. Of course, I think everybody thinks Sean Connery is the best. I think my second favorite would be Daniel Craig. I really like Pierce Brosnan. I thought he did really well as well. Do you have a favorite?
None of the James Bonds. I'm not really familiar with more than one of them. I know.
Really?
I know.
Well, which one are you familiar with?
What's his name?
Come on, you can get it. You can get it.
His name.
Goldfinger.
Yeah, the one with the It's been so long.
Dr.
since
No?
this movie.
You Only Live Twice.
I
Okay.
can't. You gotta give me a.
That's okay. That's all right. We all know now that there's a brand new Bond film that's just coming out. I forget the name of it. Do you know the name of it? Of the one that's just, you probably don't. Because
I don't, because I haven't been following them.
Okay, and I don't see it in my notes here. But there is a new James Bond movie that's debuting next week, I think it is. And it's the last in the Daniel Craig series of James Bond's movies. This will be the last one that he will be in. Then they're going to have to go out and find another James Bond. James Bond movies also have earned a series of Academy Awards, primarily because of the music. There have been some very, very famous songs that have debuted. And of course, all the gadgets that Q comes up with. And of course, not necessarily for the women out there watching, but for the men, the Bond girls. He's really famous for those as well. This one, I'm going to be frank with you, is a trick question. Okay? So put on your thinking caps. What was the very first James Bond production to air? What was the very first James Bond production movie to air? That is question number 1. For those of you that think it's easy, I'll tell you, it was 1954. That's your clue. My third question today, we'll take a look at a bit more lighter fare. Again, entertainment. We're looking at television this time. Specifically, because on October 3rd, 1961, the Dick Van Dyke Show premiered. Have you ever heard of the Dick Van Dyke Show?
I've heard of it. My
Okay.
dad and grandpa used to watch that.
Okay, but you never did.
Mm-mm.
Boy, I really feel old sometimes, Dick Van Dyke Show was very, very famous. It won 15 Emmys. It was very famous because it was one of the first shows that ended because the stars said, I think we've gone as far as we can. It only aired for like 4 seasons. His co-star on the show, Mary Tyler Moore. You've heard of Mary Tyler Moore?
Yep, and she had her own show after.
She
right?
did.
Yeah.
Do you remember the name of it?
The Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Yes! Very good! The Mary Tyler Moore Show. Very good, Ellie. I knew we'd get one that you knew, which was really good. The Mary Tyler Moore Show was also famous in its own right and really won a significant amount of awards. It aired from 1970 to 77. She received 7 Primetime Emmy Awards and 3 Golden Globe Awards. Mary Tyler Moore was also nominated for an Oscar for Best Actress in her portrayal in Ordinary People. Really out of character for her. She played the mother who was grieving the loss of a son. Wonderful, wonderful dramatic role for her, and she nailed it. But at any rate, she also starred in Thoroughly Modern Millie. One of the things, though, about Mary Tyler Moore, though, that really highlighted her career was the Mary Tyler Moore Show. Primarily because it was one of the very first shows that showed that women can be entertaining, fulfilling, they can be real people, and be career people. We don't have to base a show around their husband and their children. The PTA meeting that went awry, the Girl Scout cookie fundraiser. She was a working girl in a television station. Her boss was Luke Grant. If you remember, he went off to his own show, Ed Asner. She actually married the producer of the show, Grant Tinker. But that's beside the point. You now know that she starred in 2 really famous television series, The Dick Van Dyke Show and The Mary Tyler Moore Show. Most of you, however, do not know that that was not the first television show that she appeared in. Years later, at the end of the Mary Tyler Moore Show, she was giving an interview with Oprah Winfrey. And she acknowledged that she had an uncredited role in a weekly television show. Uncredited role in a weekly television show before the Dick Van Dyke Show. My third and final question today is, what is that uncredited role and the show that she had that role in? That, my friends, is question number 3. You all know how to win by now. Get your answers to me by noon on Monday. You can email me at mbriever@eastcastleplace.com. You can call me at 963-8425. Write your answers down on a sheet of paper. Slide them under my office door. Or, you know what? Open the door. My door is never locked. Put it on my conference table, or stop at the concierge desk and ask them to put it in my mailbox. There you have it, folks. Those are the 3 questions for this week. Maybe you can be in the winner's circle next week. As always, I'd like to thank the president of ECTV, Tyler Gudex, our executive producer, Laura Wengler, my cameraman and producer, Scott McFerrin, and as always, my artistic director, Cooper Ledvina. I'd also really like to thank my guest host this week, Ellie. Thank you very much for being here. We really wish you the best with your college career. Ellie Spaulding, everybody, I hope you enjoyed her appearance on the show as much as I did.
Thank you for having me.
Great. And I'd like to thank all of you for tuning in. As always, I am the host and the quizmaster, Mike Briever. Until next week, I ask you all to please be safe, be smart, and be patient. We are opening up more and more, and soon all of that traditional East Castle Place hospitality will be evident to all of us once again. So long, everybody.
Bye.
Mars ain't the kind of place to raise a kid. In fact, it's cold as hell. And there's no one there to raise them. If you did, gonna be a long, long time till touchdown brings me around again to find I'm not the man they think I am at home.